Joining me now is Senator Brent Taylor. He is my state senator. He represents part of the town I live in, Collierville, or maybe all of the town of Collierville, but also other areas as well. Now, again, I know we're a national broadcast, and so I don't want you to turn out, folks. I don't want you to say, well, he's going to talk about Memphis and Tennessee, and I don't live there, and I don't really care. Well, you should. Because I believe what we're going to talk about tonight, just as we did with Judge Joe Brown last Friday night, is really showing you a template of how the crime gangs, international drug cartels, Sinaloa network, drug dealers, they operate. And I think we also have some crookedness going on in some of our governments. Do you think that might be possible, folks? And how maybe these groups kind of work together or cover for each other. And I think this same template that we see in Memphis, you could probably duplicate this in Chicago, in St. Louis, Kansas City, San Francisco, Atlanta, on down the line, right? So if we can understand the problem, then maybe we can start solving some of the problems. But like the art of war, you got to know your enemy. You got to know your enemy's tactics. The same thing goes with the crime that's just rotting away at what were once great communities. We've got to know what's the template they're using. What's the cover? What's the camouflage they're using? So I think when you listen to what we're talking about here, maybe it'll inspire you to understand what's happening in your community and to find some elected officials like Senator Brent Taylor here who are willing to take it on. So all of us are concerned about crime. It's growing everywhere. And so tonight, we might be talking about Memphis, but it's just an example of what's probably going on in your backyard or nearby. Senator, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for joining us in studio.
Thank you, Brent. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you with us. I think you just brought me a great segue, because isn't that really what we're talking about when we talk about the National Guard coming in? The state and the leaders of the state are saying, we need help. And initially, people were saying, well, what if this was Kamala Harris wanting to send the National Guard into Memphis? Would you be saying, oh, she's federalizing the police and that, this is tyranny? And I know we would have that debate. But if regardless of party, if the intentions were, we have international drug cartels, let's say the Sinaloa network here and in many other cities, and they're getting their precursors from China to make their fentanyl. We're in a drug war. They are trying to create chaos. The CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, they want to create chaos. They pop in propaganda to our country, drugs, they're cyber hacking on us, they're buying up our farmland, they're bringing in their Confucius institutes where they're training their people to go into schools, and they bring their people here, they send their people here, they have to stay in touch with their CCP agents, have to stay in touch with their embassy, and they're teaching our kids on how great China is and why we should not be afraid of China. That's right. Teach our kids we don't need to be afraid of a communist regime that still follows many of the principles of Mao. I'm talking about the government, not many of the millions upon millions upon millions of Chinese that are subjected to communism that want to be free, right? I'm talking about this Chinese Communist Party. They are doing everything they can to take over this country with unrestricted warfare, whether it's bioweapons and all the other things we can get into. So what is the purpose of the National Guard if not to secure the nation, right? Whether it's the borders or interior. And if you've got international drug cartels working with our sworn enemies, be it the CCP or others working with Iran or running arms with drug cartels for Hezbollah, Iran's terror cells, what else is your National Guard for? I don't think the Memphis Police Department, I don't think the Shelby County Police, our county here, has the money to the degree. Maybe that's because of some corruption. They don't have the money they should, but they don't necessarily have the manpower and or training, some of them, to take on these gangs to this degree. Who else would you bring in? Your National Guard to secure the nation. So my position went from, I'm not as worried about federalizing of the police as I am, is this what the National Guard's here to do, which is to wage war against national drug cartels or even local gangs that are now becoming an alliance with them. That to me is a difference because they're trying to secure the nation. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that, and there's probably another element I want to address as well. But first, the National Guard coming in and helping attack this gang problem we have. We have over 100 gangs in Memphis, and the President Trump is sending a dozen federal agencies, the entire alphabet soup of agencies is kind of descending on Memphis, of which the National Guard is a part. And I've been telling the critics of this effort to say, look, the National Guard is not here to do law enforcement per se. They're here to serve as a force multiplier, to do those duties that are currently being done by commissioned police officers, to get those commissioned police officers out on the streets fighting crime with the alphabet soup of agencies. And the National Guard can do support, administrative, and logistic roles, and not actually out there chasing some criminal through somebody's backyard.
So we may not actually see the National Guard on the streets per se.
I think you'll see them perhaps securing crime scenes. Certainly they'll be around the federal buildings and any buildings where the federal government's leasing property. I think they'll be there as a show of force to protect that. But I think their primary role will be support and logistics and administrative to serve as a force multiplier, if you will, in getting police officers out on the streets. You know, Governor Lee, Tennessee's governor, has sent an additional surge of state troopers down here, and they're working with the police department, and we'll be working with these alphabet soup agencies and the National Guard. But I want to go back to your other point about the National Guard. You know, he deployed them in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
He deployed them in Los Angeles to protect the ICE agents that were there. And initially, Mayor Bowser, she was opposed to it, and Gavin Newsom was about it from the very beginning. Matter of fact, the two of them, they screamed about like a purse chihuahua does with their skin caught in the zipper of the purse. And that's how much they were screaming about it. And but here's the thing, to take what they were saying, the Governor Newsom in particular, he kept saying, you're bringing in the National Guard over the objection of the elected governor. Well, there's a precedent for that, Brandon. If you remember the 1960s,
mm-hmm.
the civil rights of African Americans were being violated routinely by state governments. They would not allow blacks to go to school,
mm-hmm.
wouldn't let them sit at the lunch counter,
mm-hmm.
wouldn't let them sit at anywhere on the bus they wanted to. And the civil rights of African Americans needed to be protected by the federal government. And what did President Eisenhower and
mm-hmm.
President Kennedy,
mm-hmm.
they sent in the National Guard over the objection.
Like in Little Rock, right?
That's right. Over the objection of Orville Faubus of Little Rock, over the objection of Ross Barnett of Mississippi, over the objection of George Wallace in Alabama, to protect the civil rights of African Americans. Fast forward to 2025. The rights of Memphians
mm-hmm.
to enjoy their homes, the rights of Memphians to enjoy their property, the rights of Memphians to be able to shop in our stores and eat in our restaurants and attend games at our sports facilities, the rights of Memphians to be able to move about the city without the fear of crime are being violated. And local government is overwhelmed. They're not able to protect the rights of Memphians. So President Trump has done the same thing that President Kennedy and President Eisenhower did to protect the rights of African Americans. He's sending in the National Guard, among other agencies, to protect the rights of Memphians. And I think Mayor Young, who is now the city mayor of Memphis, I think he has taken the right approach. Look, he will make no bones about it. He says he does not want the National Guard here. But he said that the decision was made upstream from him. And as long as that decision has been made and they're coming, he wants to work with them to get a good outcome. And I think Memphis, we're the first city to get the National Guard treatment from President Trump outside of
L.A.
Well,
mm-hmm.
the third outside L.A. and D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can serve as a template for these other cities, because I think eventually the governors of the blue states, when they see the success we have here in Memphis, having a Memphis miracle and bringing our crime down, they're going to want to emulate that in their big cities.
And Memphis has a lot to offer. And I like living here. I could live anywhere. I mean, I could sell and move wherever I want. Take the network with me. I like the culture here. I was born in Jackson, Mississippi, moved around because my dad was with the government, chose to come. My grandparents are from Haywood County, my great-grandparents, but I can take my kids out to the family cemetery, as I do, and show them all the way back to the Civil War. And I would spend time on my grandparents' farm out there in Haywood County. And I love this area. I like the culture. And the culture here is very different from the culture in Nashville. I like the culture here. I wouldn't want to live in Nashville. Nothing against people in Nashville, But I don't like the culture in Nashville. I like the culture here. It's a very distinct and unique culture. Would you agree?
I agree. Nashville's culture is almost identical to Atlanta, Dallas, and Charlotte.
Very metropolitan. It's kind of been diluted.
It's almost like a plastic city.
That's
All
exactly
the skyline
right.
looks the same. Memphis, on the other hand, it is like St. Louis and New Orleans. It's a gritty river town. There's a lot of culture here.
A lot of history.
A lot of history. And I know, it's interesting. We've got two distinct cultures. We have a white culture and the African American culture. And what people don't think, they think we have a race issue in Memphis. We don't. We really never have.
I tell my national radio audience and TV audience all the time, we don't have a race problem. What we have is a crime problem, which is largely black on black.
That's right. And
people say, are you afraid to go to Memphis? And a lot of times I say, no, because I'm not black. But if you were black and you went into the wrong area or you were running around the wrong people, you should be afraid. But by and large, no, I'm not afraid of Memphis because I don't go to Orange Mound. I don't go to Fraser. I don't go to certain places. I know to stay out of those areas. But there are people who are basically trapped there. They can't afford to leave those areas. And they should have the right, as you say, the civil right to live in a safe community. Isn't that what the first primary function of government is? Security and protection.
And protect liberty. And I can prove that we don't have a race issue because going all the way back to Rodney King and George Floyd more recently, when other cities across the country were rioting, Memphis never did. Sure, we had some demonstrations downtown, but they never turned violent. We just typically...
Neither during 2020.
2020, we didn't in 2020, and locally when we had Tyree Nichols, who was allegedly murdered by the police officers that pulled him over, we didn't have rioting. And so we don't have, you said it perfectly, we don't have a race issue, we have a crime issue, and that's one that we need to solve, and that's what I think President Trump
and a lot of my black friends want it solved as much as anyone else, right?
It is, and I will add another layer to this, and that is if we don't get a hold of our crime problem, you mentioned you could move anywhere and take your studio with you.
People will move.
That's right. If we don't get this solved, we're going to witness the hollowing out of Memphis's middle class. And most small business owners are middle class people. And what will be left in Memphis will be the extremely poor people who couldn't afford to leave. And then the extremely wealthy people who could afford private security to stay. The middle class will just up and leave.
And I want to address that right there because I've said on my radio show for several years, and we have a big, powerful new software program coming and people can search it. I have said to my radio and TV audience, as we track trends, because that's what we like to do is track trends, look at philosophies and ideas and see where those are going and say, we think, 5 years, 10 years from now, this is going to be the growing trend. One of the things I said is you're going to see more and more private security companies. And I told some of my friends who were on the Carville Police Department many years ago, 10 plus years ago, guys, the future is going to be private security. And if you want to take your training as police officers and go into private security, which one of my friends left the Carville Police Department after his time and retired. Now he does that and he does security for us as well. I said, you start a security company because churches, synagogues, and wealthy neighborhoods or middle-class neighborhoods, so what? You charge them an extra $200, $300 a year on their HOA to have you driving around their neighborhood all night long, keeping watch over them. They'll do that for $300 or $400 or whatever they got to do. You can't put a price on that for a family to sleep well at night and know everything's good, right? And yet, what do we see? Even the neighborhood I live in, I've been in my neighborhood for almost 21 years. I said, hey, there might be something at some point we raise our HOA and become a gated neighborhood. Now there's problems with that because then you got to take over the roads. But guess what someone said to me the other day? There's people in your neighborhood talking about making a gated community. I said, well, look, there you go. You're going to see more of that. And you're right. People that have the resources and the means, they'll have the security in their neighborhoods. And the other folks that won't, they'll be afraid and they'll leave.
Right. It'll be the hollowing out of Memphis's middle class. We're not there yet. And that's why I think it's critically important that President Trump send these troops down here. And I since I was elected to the Senate, I have made my mantra to make Memphis matter. And the way to make Memphis matter is to make Memphis safe. And I started out, having some people join my team. First, it was other senators, and then it became the governor. But when he sent additional state troopers down here, and to see what I started a couple of years ago culminate with President Trump joining the Make Memphis Matter movement by sending the National Guard and all these agencies down to Memphis to help make Memphis safe. It was kind of a pinch me moment for me during my Senate career.
I'm glad you've been working this hard. And I've been following you up, by the way. I've been following you. The guys in the control room follow you really close. One of the young men in there, of course, his dad's the vice mayor here in town. So a lot of these guys have really been following you guys and telling me about you for some time. I hear about you from other people, but I've heard more about you from the young guys in the control room.
Well, I've got a good.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think 20-something-year-olds follow you?
I think it's because I've got an interesting social media presence, and I'm outspoken, and we've got an indivisible Memphis group, and they're a nationwide leftist organization, and they target me, and I play with them. I refer to them as all the weathered, purple-haired hippies, and so there's a lot of back and forth on my social media, and I think that's why a lot of the young people like engaging.
Well, that's good for you. Now, I want to show you a video. I am told that this has not been aired on any of the social media platforms. I'm told it hasn't been put on any news station here in town. I won't get into the particulars of who's shooting at who, and I can't even keep up with the name of these people and pronounce some of them in these groups. But I don't really think all that matters. That just confuses a lot of people. I think what it shows is a serious problem of gangs fighting each other and turf warfare and who knows what else it's all about. But this is what we're talking about. This is what, after I interviewed Judge Joe Brown the other night, I started getting videos, and particularly one individual started sharing videos with me. He said, you should show this. He said, this has not been aired publicly. I guess that's true. I don't know. You can tell me if you've seen it. This took place in Memphis. We got a couple shots. There's one right there. Now you just see a guy there on the ground just got shot and killed. Now we'll let that loop a couple times. And that took place, I'm told, in Memphis. I think there's another angle. This is a different one here. Look at that. Look at that. Now, I don't know if that gentleman in the suit is a security guard or what. That's what I was told, I believe. But have you seen these? So you're a state senator. You're seeing these. So the guy that sent it to me said, "You've not." He said, "No one has shown these. You showed these. These are going to blow up." And unfortunately, that is not an uncommon occurrence, though, is it?
It is not.
And sadly, some of that now is spilling into areas. We traditionally said, if you stay out of the bad neighborhoods, you're fine. But unfortunately, we're starting to see this stuff pop up in front of the pyramid and other places where the tourists are, where we go with our families, that traditionally, that hasn't gone, those shootouts with each other in the street has not occurred in the areas where we and the tourists go. True or false?
That's true.
But it now is starting to occur.
That's true.
So pretty soon, if we're not careful, now, I don't want to scare everybody away from my national conference coming up because it will be in Collierville. So all my friends coming from Washington State, Oregon, Florida, Wisconsin, can you assure them that if they drive in and come to Collierville or fly to the airport, that you're pretty safe here in Collierville?
Let me say to your attendees that are coming to your conference, where's the camera? Right there. Mm-hmm. If you are concerned about crime in Memphis to attend Brandon's conference, I want you to know one thing. The cavalry is literally on the way. President Trump made sure of that, and by the time the conference occurs, crime will be under control, just like it was in Washington, D.C. in short order. And Washington, D.C. went about 3 weeks, maybe longer, without a single murder. And we're expecting the same thing here. So you'll be safe to attend Memphis. And we're known for two things, good barbecue and Elvis Presley.
Yeah, that's right. And I love Elvis Presley's music. I'm a little embarrassed because I've had this national conference now. This is our 22nd annual Worldview Weekend. Branson, Missouri for years. Then we moved to the Lake of the Ozarks. And I just didn't feel like packing everything up and taking all the film equipment and I said, let's just do it in town. I'm exhausted. So we got our beautiful Herald Theater, here in town. And the town's been good to us to let us rent that. And we've got several hundred people attending. But I was just up in Milwaukee speaking. And we had 1,000 people, standing room only. And I'm like, wait a minute, how can we do 1,000 up there? Now, I know I have a lot of radio stations up there, but how can we do 1,000 people there, but we can only bring out a few hundred here? And some of the folks are telling me, well, I was scared to come to your town. And I understand, because I think some of it gets blown out of proportion. But unfortunately, what I'm seeing now, as I said, is some of this is been isolated into the dangerous parts of town everybody knows not to go to. But some of it is starting to spill into places where the tourists are going. This has got to stop because we ought to be able to hold a national conference here without people around the country thinking bad about Memphis, right?
Oh, totally agree. Totally agree. And the as you saw there, the shooting and the people.
Go ahead and show it again, guys, when he's talking.
The people getting killed there. One of the reasons that has continued to be the case is we have, as you know, a leftist district attorney here.
Tell me about that. George Soros?
He's a Soros-funded DA, and he is a restorative justice schemer. He and Decarcerate Memphis and Just City, which is an organization that is dedicated to ending incarceration, and they do everything they can to keep people from being put in jail. And it's almost like our DA here wants to save souls, and I have encouraged him. I'm glad you want to save souls, and I would ask you to resign and join the ministry and save souls and leave prosecution of criminals.
I think he'd probably preach a liberation theology if he did.
Well, that's fine. The city would be safer as a result.
That's true. And
I know that his mother and Jesus love him, but everybody else thinks he is doing a horrible job as DA. And
what have the crime done since he took place? Has he got in-house crime gone straight up?
Well, it initially went up. There has been a downturn in our crime, but it's been primarily because of a couple of things. One, there is a national trend of crime going down, and I think we're riding that trend. The second thing is, in the last 5.5 months, the federal government, FBI, has been here on what they call Operation Viper, where they've had the FBI and the U.S. Marshal's Office here in Memphis operating. And in the last 4 or 5 months, they have actually done 500 arrests, gotten over 100 federal indictments, and they've gotten a lot of these gangbangers off the street. We have about 100 gangs operating here. And that's why the president is sending the National Guard troops and these other agencies to Memphis, because that first 500 arrests, that's the low-hanging fruit. And so it's going to take additional resources to capture some of that fruit that's a little harder to get, and that's why they're coming here. So,
but do we have to worry that this is a temporary thing where they're sent away for a year or two, and then next thing you know, they're right back here again?
Good question. And the way I've explained it is that if we could get crime down to a manageable level, because right now the police department they're simply overwhelmed. There's so many gangs here and so much criminal activity, they're overwhelmed. So if we could get the crime down to a manageable level, so that the crime matches the level of police officers that we have here, then they can keep it down.
But how many police slots, Senator, do we have open right now?
We should have about 2,500 police officers. Instead, we're down to about 1,700. So we're 600-700 police officers down. But
600-700.
But that is a lot. But that is no different than any other city across the country. They're all suffering from manpower shortages.
And why? And I'll tell you why, I think. And you tell me if you agree. I think it's because we don't pay the police what we should. We don't have them treated with respect. Many of them feel demoralized. So it's like, why am I going to go out here and put my life at risk and only to have the same thug get released again? So we're not paying them well. You know, we have so much waste. Now, I haven't seen the books, but I listened to Judge Joe Brown, a few of these other people. They're saying, and I got some people this week after that interview with Judge Joe Brown, which I was not expecting that to get the traction that it got. I mean, within about 5...
Joe Brown knows how to get traction.
Well, he does know how to get traction. In about 5 days, that thing got, just on YouTube, like 75,000 views. But the majority of them were from right here in the area. I mean, I walked into a big box store, and you can testify, I keep a pretty low profile in town, don't I?
You do?
I do not go around creating noise in town, do I?
You do not.
I mean, and I would really hesitate to even bring
the kind of neighbor anybody would want.
Well, that's true. I'm very low profile.
If everybody was like you, we need fences.
That's true. I'm very low profile. And there are people who don't even know I live here. I mean, there are people I run into who say, I thought you moved. I didn't think you even lived here anymore, because how low profile I am. And I do that on purpose, okay? For a lot of reasons, but I do it on purpose. But I'm not like a celebrity in town, because I'm very low profile. I walked into a big box store this morning, a big one, hardware store. You know the chain, and the lady there that watches everybody scan their stuff. You know, we all do our own checkout now. I walked in and she looked at me and I smiled. I recognized her. I've talked to her, checking stuff out. She looked at me. I smiled. She looked back and she said, I just got done watching you on YouTube with Judge Joe Brown. I said, oh, so you know who I am, what I do now, do you? And she said, oh, yeah, and I support you. Well, I don't think she was following me. I had a clue who I was when we were just friends and a customer. But the point is that thing got so penetrated into the Memphis area. And I think a reason why is because there are a lot of people that want this problem fixed. But what I did get was information from folks saying, we have departments inside the city government here that are missing millions of dollars. So we have millions of dollars we could be using to pay police a nice salary, hire retired military, special forces guys, God and country people. And we know the military signs up a lot of folks from the South, right? So we have a lot of our own right here that we could hire, pay them a decent salary, respect them, honor them, fight crime, and give them a salary that would attract the best candidates. But we're missing millions. I'm told by, again, not just one person. I'm getting flooded with people saying, do you know about this agency and that agency and this agency inside the Department of Memphis in Memphis government that's missing millions here and millions here and millions here, gone. How are we going to stop that so we can pay the best salaries to get these 700 police officers back on the street?
Well, it is a challenge. And of course, the example that's gotten the most notoriety here locally is with our transit authority. Mm-hmm. They've had $60 million. They don't know where the hell the money went. And so that's
$60 million.
$60 million.
That they cannot account for.
They can't account for it. And the mayor has...
But isn't that a criminal issue?
Well, it could be. I mean, they are looking...
Is the district attorney looking into that?
Well... he would give them if he caught them, he would give them a hug, a hot cup of cocoa, and a church bulletin, and ask them to go to Sunday school Sunday for repentance. But I tell you another issue. One reason we can't hire police officers. Number one, you're right. We don't pay them enough. But here locally, talking about local government, our county government with our sheriff's department, they have actually defunded the sheriff's department to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars. Every year, the sheriff has these unfilled positions we just talked about. Sheriff departments and police departments can't hire anybody. So he's got these unfilled positions that are fully funded in the budget, but he can't fill them. So he has the staff he does have to work overtime, and he uses that money to pay overtime. Well, the county mayor went in and took all that money, tens of millions of dollars over 3 years, and spent it who knows where. And it's amazing how far we've come from September 11th, 2001, when the Twin Towers fell.
Right.
And when the Twin Towers fell, there were 2 new Twin Towers that were erected around the country, and that is police officers and firefighters, because they ran into danger when everybody else was running out. And back then, you could hear young people saying, I want to be a policeman. I want to be a fireman. Fast forward, and I think 2020 and the Black Lives Matter movement had more to do with this than anybody, where we took police officers and we villainized them and allowed people to walk all over the streets chanting, what was it, pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon.
That's
or whatever.
Exactly right.
And who the hell would want to be a police officer when the community doesn't even appreciate it?
Or when police officers do their job. We had a young lady who is a police officer from Alabama on my broadcast. Can you help me with her name, Logan? Darby. And her husband was also, Keelan Darby. Her husband was also a police officer. This is in Alabama. Ben Darby. And I have not interviewed him because he can't talk yet, but I interviewed her several times. He shows up on a scene in Alabama where 2 officers are, if I remember the story correctly, are already in the living room with a man who's threatening to kill himself. He shows up as the 3rd officer. The man's got a gun. He's got it to his head. And he shows up, and I don't know if he outranked the other people or what, but he had training different theirs or what, I don't know. But at some point, he took some involvement, even though he came in late, to trying to rectify the situation. And at one point, he warned this guy over and over, do not turn that gun toward me or these officers, or we will have to kill you. And we don't want to do that. We can work this out. Let's talk it out. But do not turn that gun our direction. And in the course of trying to talk this man down, he turned that gun toward them, and he was required, based on his training, to take that man's life. Now, that was his training. And it's still, I'm told by his wife, who came on our broadcast several times, was still the training but there was some kind of political battle between the police and the prosecutor, and they went to the wall and they threw him in jail. And we were advocating for him. And thankfully, due to a lot of pressure, he got a new deal. He's out, and he's got like another year or so he has to be quiet. And maybe after that, he'll be able to talk to us, but he can't do that. And here's the deal. Who would want to be a police officer if you follow your training, you do what you're trained to do, it's still the training being taught, and yet you go to prison? Why would you want to be a police officer?
Yeah, and you're being judged by many times a leftist DA like we have here, and he's judging you on a split-second decision, and that's unfortunate. And the police officers ought to be given the benefit of the doubt when having to make those kinds of.
And the body camera today should be helping him, I would think.
I would think so too, because I mean everything is recorded now, but look, when you've got our DA here, he's got a justice review unit that is charged with responsibility of two things. One, and he says this, one is to prosecute police officers. And then the second one is to review old cases, past convictions, to see if they can punch holes in those convictions and get people out. And he's actually done that in one particular case of a guy who was on death row. Brandon, he was on death row for killing two people. He had 2 death sentences. And they got him transferred from death row to life in prison, eligible for parole. And now the guy is up for parole after having been on death row and killing 2 people back in 1983. And that's what this leftist DA that we have here in Memphis is doing. Look, and it's not just him, it's Larry Krasner. It's all these DAs, Kim Fox, it's all these DAs all across the country have been funded by George Soros.
Yeah, and George Soros, of course, we know where his worldview is, right? This is a socialist, I believe a socialist, communist worldview. And I don't know if these people are just, some of them, and I'm talking about George Soros, I don't know if some of these Soros DAs are just, if they themselves are change agents looking to bring down the country, or if they are just lacking in discernment and the evilness of the human heart. You know, the prophet Jeremiah says, the heart is desperately wicked above all else. Who can know it, right? I don't know if these people think that, well, we just create the right environment, we won't have crime. We get to create the right environment, people won't steal. Yet we know some of the poorest people have been very moral, upright, great citizens. During the Great Depression, we didn't have crime running rampant because there was a moral code. But yet we also know people that are extremely wealthy, many of them, Lenin, Castro in Cuba. I mean, I could go down the line of very, very wealthy people, had all the money they could get their hands on, but they were brutal murderers. And so man's heart isn't changed by his financial condition. It's changed, as I believe, through the power of the gospel. But these guys seem to think, well, we just create the right environment, this will all end. So it's either they don't understand original sin, the fall, the heart of man, or they really are out to destroy the country. Now, I believe some of them are out to destroy the country. The whole 1983, my friend Georg Griffin interviewed a former KGB agent whose expertise was brainwashing, and Yuri Bezmenov. And he said, look, our goal in this, this was when the Soviet Union was up and running, he says on tape, our goal, demoralize, destabilize, chaos, the new norm. Demoralize, destabilize, chaos, the new norm. Of course, the new norm is socialism, right? But in this process, I think we're in the chaos. We're in the chaos stage that they're deliberately creating to try to destroy this country to a point, at some point, where I'm afraid some of the solutions will be, quote, solutions, will be embraced even by patriots, conservatives, constitutionalists, MAGA people will embrace them. For instance, crime. Well, you want to end crime? Let's create 15-minute cities. Then you'll know everybody coming into town. You got to be scanned. You want to do it at the border? Everybody needs their biometrics read, you know? And all of a sudden, we're being tracked and digitally tracked. And you think, well, that's probably a great way to use technology to cut down on crime, which I'm for that part of it. But next thing you know, who's got that, right? And I played a clip recently of RFK Jr. saying the system that's being put into place now will be used by somebody in the future to control every aspect of us, like they do in China. Whereas you jaywalk, the money, I'm not joking, comes out of your account before you get to the other side of the street. Now you can't ride on the train. You can't get on a plane. You're not allowed to leave the country. And they open a file on you called a Dangan. When you enter school, and it follows you your whole life, and your hiring, your firing, your job promotions, your ability to travel is all based on that.
Thank God we don't have that here because I was not good in school. We talked about that earlier. And my first job when I moved to Memphis was at a funeral home here, and I got fired more times than Davy Crockett's shotgun. And so I certainly wouldn't want that. As a matter of fact, I have that distrust of government. When I go to the airport, I won't even go through the scanner thing. I don't go through it. I do a pat down which is uncomfortable. But they kept saying all along, "Oh, we don't keep those scans. We don't keep those scans." Well, it came out a few years ago. They actually did keep those scans, and so I just don't trust the government.
So I guess what I'm saying is, do you think the crime is being used to get us to the new norm? Demoralize, destabilize, chaos, and now the new norm, where we'll cry out for liberty, for safety, right, protection and safety, and all of a sudden we're willing to surrender some of our civil liberties to try to get back some of our civil liberties.
Neither.
Exactly. Is that a concern?
It is a concern, and you see it now among a lot of people over the gun debate. People say, "Well, we need to get all these guns off the streets," and all of that. Matter of fact, I was in a virtual meeting the other day where the issue of gun restrictions came up. And I told them, I said, and they were complaining about permitless carry because we have permitless carry in Tennessee. And they were complaining about that. And I said, well, let me ask you that. If we moved to where you had to have a permit to have a gun in Memphis, if you watched that video we just saw.
Yeah, play it again, guys.
Yeah. Do you think those guys wouldn't have had those guns because they had to have a permit?
Yeah, criminals aren't going to follow the law.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. So if you require permits, that only applies to law-abiding citizens, not to the criminal. By definition, criminals don't follow laws. And we've had permitless carry since Cain slew Abel with a stone. And the best antidote to guns on the street, a bad guy with a gun, is a good guy.
That's 100% right. 100% right. We're showing that again. Let me ask you this as we get ready to wrap. If you ran your funeral homes, you had standards you had to apply by to keep your doors open, right?
That's correct.
And what if you didn't apply by them? What if you didn't practice those standards? What would happen?
Well, either the city government or my regulatory board would come down and they would shut my doors.
They shut your doors. So when we look at this shooting going on, one of them was in front of a club or a restaurant, not that one, but the other one, I think was in front of a restaurant or a club. I'm hearing that some of these places, that's what they are. They're restaurants, they're clubs. At what point do we start as citizens demanding that if that's what's going on there, we need to pull their license? They need to be shut. These clubs, these restaurants, where these businesses are that are setting this environment and this kind of garbage is going on, and making that available without reporting it and calling the police and saying, look, we've got to get this out of here. We need help cleaning our business. I'm not talking about some innocent guy who runs a restaurant and these folks come in and start creating crime. But if this is a place that is a front for crime and their businesses, why don't we just shut them down, pull their license and shut them down?
And there are statutes that allow for that to happen. And I, as critical as I am of our locally elected DA, he has actually done that in a couple of cases where a business was criminally negligent and they would go in under the order of the district attorney and close it down. They would then go to court and the judge would tell them what they would have to do in order to open their doors back up. And it's provide additional security. It's about doing video surveillance, recordings, that kind of thing. But so many of these businesses know that the illegal activity is happening out in the parking lot, or even worse, happening inside the building, and they actually encourage it because they're either getting a cut of what's going on inside, or they're being paid to allow that activity to occur. So I certainly think we need to do that, but we need to make sure, and I think you would agree with this, we need to make sure that in doing that we protect the rightful law-abiding business owners 100%. Who happen to have a crime that occurs outside their business. So,
all right, I'm not going to keep you much longer, but let me ask you about Elon Musk. Some of the folks that are screaming and hollering about, the National Guard, are they not some of the same people screaming and hollering about Elon being here with his turbine generators and whatnot, and don't want that here? Now, my hesitation on any of that is I just don't want to stress out the power grid. It's already, kind of weak, and we get too much going on. And I don't know if you've noticed, but our power here has gone out more times the last year or so than I ever remember in almost 21 years, right? And I got a lot of expensive equipment here. And if this keeps going up and down, it's going to destroy some of this equipment.
Right.
And we've had to take precautions with generators and battery systems so it doesn't do this. But hopefully they'll stable this thing out. Now I hear Google's going to bring a $10 billion data system right over the border in Arkansas and West Memphis. Can these communities handle these data centers and how powerful they are? And what do you make of the people that are talking trash about Elon's data center? Are these people really interested in the environment, or are they just using this as political fodder?
Well, I think the term you're looking for is artists. That is what they really are, and they have the credibility of my mother's Facebook page, and the policies that they try to advance are as useless as a nutrition chart on a bag of ice.
Where do you come up with this?
So I can't speak to the other data centers, but I can speak to XAI because I have been in many meetings with them, and I can tell you that when Elon Musk put XAI here, there was concern about the water usage to cool the computers. He is actually, instead of using our aquifer, which is here in Memphis and very prized among Memphians, he is not using a drop of water out of the aquifer. He is actually, at his own expense, building an $80 million wastewater treatment facility that will use gray water from the effluent from the sewers, clean it up, cools the computers, and then sends the water back to the city to ultimately be released in the Mississippi River. So that solved the water problem. Then there was the issue of electricity. And he is actually building 2 substations at his own expense down near the XAI facility. And he has purchased a decommissioned Duke Energy plant across the state line in Mississippi that he's going to get back online to produce electricity for his XAI facility and then sell excess energy back into the grid. And
that'll be a business in itself.
That's right. And the other thing is he has got dozens and dozens of these Tesla battery packs down there that protect the huge fluctuation in energy usage from the data center. Because if you just attach that directly to the grid, like you said, it would damage your equipment, it'll damage the grid. So the batteries actually absorb that huge fluctuation, but then they're downloading at a steady pace to recharge the battery. And lastly, he has agreed that in times of peak energy use that he would reduce his energy consumption, which we typically require that of large industrial customers to agree to reduce their usage during peak times. He has not only agreed to that, he's agreed to come off the grid in peak energy times at 100%.
Oh, wow.
Because he can use those Tesla battery packs and stay off the grid completely for almost a day.
Wow.
And then he's got the turbines, which has caused a lot of, the gas turbines, which has caused a lot of concern here locally, and a lot of the people who got big enough mouths for 3 sets of teeth that they're complaining about. He's got the gas turbines as a backup, and in the event he has to stay off the grid longer than his battery's capacity will allow him to do it.
Have you met with him?
Not with Elon Musk. I've met with a gentleman that runs the XAI facility. I've toured it with the Mississippi governor. I've been on a tour and a debriefing with Senator Marsha Blackburn, Tennessee's United States Senator. And I've been there several times and had several meetings.
Pretty impressive.
It is unbelievable.
Can you believe how fast he put it up?
Unbelievable. I mean, the substation I was telling you about, our local utility company, as you know, is Memphis Light, Gas, and Water. It's our local utility company. They said they would build the substation, and it would take them about 5 years to get it online. XAI said, no, we need it online in 5 months. And they said, well, we can't do it. He said, well, we'll build it. If you'll let us build it, we'll build it, and we'll just gift it to you. So they built that in a matter of months. I'm sorry?
How much that saved the city or MLGW?
Millions upon millions of dollars.
And why isn't this a perfect example? The solutions are not found in government, but private entrepreneurs and corporations.
Elon Musk, his XAI facility is the largest private investment in Tennessee history. We thought Blue Oval City, which is up near your homeland in Haywood County in West Tennessee, that was $5.5 billion. It was the largest private investment in Tennessee history at the time. Cost the state $1 billion to get Ford to come in incentives. XAI comes in. There, last I heard, and I'm sure it's more now, they were up about $13 or $14 billion in private investment of Elon Musk and his investors' money, not a dime in government incentives. That's the way we ought to be doing industry in this country.
What's going to happen with Blue Oval? Are we going to? Is it going to happen there? What about the talk of thousands of folks from South Korea coming in here and working and taking jobs? Is that real?
It has been a slower rollout than they anticipated. I think because the demand for electric vehicles is down. Look, I got a 2-year trade school education. I'm an undertaker by profession. I have a PhD. I'm a professional hearse driver. And I'm telling you, I could have foreseen that. There's nobody interested in electric vehicles. Sure not. I think that they will ultimately...
Professional hearse driver, PhD. Remember that, boy.
That's right. I think they will ultimately produce something there, whether it's probably will be a hybrid that'll be produced there. But Ford has given every indication that they do plan to open that facility up and manufacture vehicles.
Do we have to worry about South Koreans coming in here taking Tennessean jobs?
We hope not.
You've heard that, right?
I have heard that, and that's why I'm a big proponent of career technical education, CTEs, because I think not every student is college material, and we ought to be training people for the jobs that we need. And I think community college and career colleges and trade schools are the best kept secret. Because you can go get a certification in something and get out and go to work making a lot of money with no college debt. And let me just say this last thing. The reason I think vocational education is so important is because I believe that the vocational student that comes out and gets a job is far more entrepreneurial than their college counterpart. You take somebody that comes out of a career school and they become an electrician. They go to work for an electrician. They go, hell, I can do this myself. So they buy them a truck.
That's right.
One truck turns to 2, 2 turns to 4, 4 turns to 8. Next thing you know, they have a whole fleet of trucks employing 150, 200 people in an electric company. I think they are far more entrepreneurial than their college counterparts who wind up, they have a nice degree, a lot of debt, and sitting in a cubicle in the bowels of some business somewhere.
Well, there's a lot of them that come and out of school, they can't find a job, or if they do, the salary is so low. It's like you went to school, paid all that money and time to get a job making that little money. And yet I got guys in my control room who I took literally right out of high school, trained them, and they're making better money than some of their friends that went to college and got a degree. They got tons of debt and making poor money. They have zero debt, making better money because we did the apprenticeship concept and trained them and turned them into amazing technicians, to the point that some of them I have to be worried that my competitors have tried hiring them away.
I was going to say, you gave them a marketable skill.
I did.
And it will, ultimately, they'll be able to demand higher wages because they have a marketable skill. Just because somebody has a degree in North African lesbian poetry studies does not mean you're going to be able to make a living. And I would much rather take one of your technicians and train them for the job I need and pay them accordingly than for them to have that Northern African lesbian poetry study degree.
Guys, can we take all of his sayings and string them together and shove them all over social media? Okay. Yeah, you must be friends with Tim Burchett, they're saying in the control room.
No, but I've heard people say that Tim and I have similar...
or Senator Kennedy down in Louisiana.
Yeah, I've heard that we all have similar personalities.
Well, I'm going to give my boys a marching order in there. Take all of these funny, what are we going to call them? Taylorisms?
Yeah.
Take all these Taylorisms, string them together, and let's shove them all over social media. All right, final question. Are you going to run for Congress, U.S. House of Representatives?
No, I enjoy the state Senate, and I'll tell you why I enjoy the state Senate so much. Is I could go to Congress, and for the first decade, I'm not going to pass any bills of my own. I'm going to be signing on to leadership bills. And in my spare time, I'll be in the bowels of the NRCC raising money for the conference. And whereas in the state Senate, literally, Brandon, I can have an idea, get the attorneys that work for the General Assembly to draft it in bill form, go get 16 other senators to agree with me, 50 House members to agree, send it to the governor, it can become law. In my 3 years in the state Senate, I guarantee you I have passed more bills in my first 3 years than probably all of the congressmen have in the last 3 years combined. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think I can have a bigger impact on the lives of Memphians sitting in the state Senate than I could in Congress because it is so dysfunctional. They'll pass maybe 20 bills a year. We pass 20 bills a day when we're in session in Nashville. So I just think I'm where the Lord wants me.
And the solutions are local.
The solutions are local.
They are. Washington is not solving a lot of our problems here in our town, are they?
Washington is the problem.
Exactly. Ronald Reagan said that, didn't he?
He did.
Government's not the solution. It is the problem.
Right. The worst thing you can hear somebody say is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Exactly right. Well, we've enjoyed having you in studio. Thank you for making time for us.
Yeah.
Hope you'll come back.
Absolutely. Invite me back.
Let me ask you real quick, not to get too far off, but these dear folks are also your constituents. You notice right over your shoulder, I have an Israeli flag. I don't know if you noticed that or not.
I did not when I came in, but I'll look when I leave. Yeah.
And that's not there because I agree with everything the government of Israel does. I put that there because I have written 17, 18 books, documentaries. A lot of it's on the Holocaust. I've written a lot on the Holocaust. And people can deny it all they want, but we got the black and white footage. And I'm friends with a lot of folks who lost family members in the Holocaust. I even interviewed some folks, had some folks speak for me that survived the Holocaust. That flag's there because I am concerned about my Jewish friends. And I have a lot of Jewish friends in Memphis too, and around the country and in Israel. I don't know if you know this, but I have a reporter on the ground in Israel.
I did not know.
Yeah, we pay him, and we have a reporter on the ground in Israel. And he's on with us many hours a week. On October 7th, I text my reporter in Israel. I said, I have an app on my phone. Every time a rocket goes home, this thing on my phone maybe 3 months. And I thought, well, in the 3 months, I've never heard this siren go off this many times. This is going on and on and on and on and on. I text my reporter and I said, are you okay? He texts back and he said, my cell coverage isn't real good. I'm in a bunker. He said, but this is just Israel. Well, I text him back, far be it from me to tell you, I mean, you live there, you're there, been living there for, he was, I think he's from, where's he from, guys? New Zealand, Australia. They always sound the same to me. But I think he's from Australia. And but he's been in Israel for 30-something years. So I said, far be it from me to tell you what's going on in your country, but this is not normal in the 3 months I've had this app. But if you've had it for 3 years or 30 years, and this is normal, okay. About an hour later, he texted me back. He said, we're at war. The next day, I came to this desk and I spent 8 hours on the air with my reporter live on the ground in Israel and several of my other reporters around the country. And we reported on that. And we showed, Senator, the video footage coming over, and we were seeing it for the first time because I can sit here and I can produce, and I would largely produce my own show in real time. So a guest could be talking. I can push a button over here and just go to that guest, and that guest is only on the screen. Well, I sit here and pull up stuff, and I was pulling up footage coming in raw. And then I would come back to the camera and say, I'm going to play this. This is not scrambled. It is not fuzzy. It's uncensored because we need to see the truth. Because people are going to be denying this in a matter of days. And they're going to be blaming Israel for this, what's going on, which turned out, as you know, to be the rape and murder of 1,200 people, including cutting off the feet of babies, putting babies in ovens, gang rape, and all this other stuff. And I said, I'm not showing it censored. I'm showing it because we need a wake-up call. And we did that for 8 hours that day. And so that flag is there. I moved that flag in there because I'm concerned about my Jewish friends. I received a phone call not too long ago from a lady whose husband's a rabbi here in town. And on the night of October 7th, my wife and I took a young gal to dinner because she had a sukkah in her backyard to honor one of the festivals. And this is a gal in her 20s. And she had here in Memphis, she had a sukkah in her backyard, and a lot of young Jewish folks in their 20s were in that backyard observing this Jewish festival, and all their phones started going off. And they had to get up, go home, start packing their bags, And within 48 hours, every one of them was right here in Memphis, in a backyard, observing a Jewish festival. Within 48 hours, most of them were in uniform back in Israel. They left their businesses here and they went. And she didn't have to go because she has a child. And so my wife and I took her to dinner that night. We sat across the table from her having dinner in Memphis at a restaurant we like. And tears, the whole 2-3 hours we were there, she could hardly keep the tears streaming on her face. She had a friend that was there at that festival that was abducted. And I moved that flag in there because I've been studying the Jewish people and the Jewish state and the folks and what's been going on to them. But I'm very concerned, and I've gotten to know some of the more and more of the Jewish community in Memphis. And a rabbi's wife called me. And I want you to just speak to that as our last topic, because these are your constituents too. How concerned are you about the rise of anti-Semitism?
I'm concerned. I, like you, I watched in horror of October 7th. And like you said, what they did to babies and what they did to those teenagers and young people at a concert with that surprise attack. And, and all the money that Israel and the United States sent into Gaza to help for humanitarian purpose, make sure that people had hospitals to go to and food to eat. And all that money was stolen by Hamas and used it to build tunnels that they ultimately took the money that Israel was giving them only to turn around and attack them with it. And Israel has a right to defend itself. And that's what they're doing. And look, I get it. A lot of people are critical now of Israel, but Netanyahu said in the beginning, he said, we are going to exterminate Hamas to ensure that they never do this again. And he is in the process of doing that. And so that it's a very real threat. And then I have been surprised at the people on college campuses around the country with just open anti-Semitic comments and intimidating Jewish people to the point that they don't even feel comfortable going to class. And these college administrators doing nothing to protect the rights of the Jewish folks against the intimidation of Palestinian supporters. And we even saw it locally. We saw, if you may remember, we've got the Hernando de Soto Bridge that goes across the Mississippi River. And after October 7th, a bunch of Palestinian supporters went and commandeered that bridge and blocked it. And they were chanting from the river to the sea.
That's right.
And I immediately was on the phone with PHP trying to get them there. And I wish I could have gotten there earlier because the demonstration broke up and they got off the bridge. But while they were chanting from the river to the sea, the police should have been taking them from the river to the CJC. And so as a result of that, I actually passed a bill in the legislature that now criminalizes the commandeering of roadways and bridges for demonstrations. And
you can have people die who need to get to a hospital and they can't get across that bridge.
Exactly. I mean, that is exactly. They blocked that bridge for a couple of hours, and there were people who, the hospitals for the Mid-South area are in Memphis, and there were people over in Arkansas needing to get over. So President Trump is correct in having Secretary Rubio look to revoke the student visas of anybody who engages in anti-Semitic behavior and talk against the Jewish people. Because they are guests in our country. And look, if you're an American citizen and you want to have your freedom of speech to support Palestine, in our country, you got the right to do that. You can't intimidate people. You can't commit crimes against
terroristic
people.
Threats.
But you have the right to say what you want to say. But that's the great thing about free speech, because you get to know who the And so we just need to take note of that.
That's right.
So look, I think Israel has a right to defend itself, and we have a lot of the Jewish population in Memphis lives in my district.
I bet they do.
And I have been to a couple of their memorial ceremonies commemorating October the 7th, and hopefully we'll quickly get to a day where that war will end, and hopefully the Palestinians will choose leadership that will have their best interest at heart and allow the Palestinian people there in Gaza live a productive life. And Israel gave them everything. They allowed them to come into Israel and work.
Be in the Knesset, on the Supreme Court.
they've given them every reason to live it peaceful, and for whatever reason, the government that the Palestinian people choose remains hostile to Israel. And they keep saying that, well, that was Palestine before Israel took it over. Well, if you go all the way back, it was Israel's. And God gave it to the ancient Israelites. It's their land.
Historically and biblically. And of course, you and I know the whole Philistine, or as they call it today, Palestine, but really Philistine or Philistine was given by the Roman emperor. And it was done to pick that name, which was the arch enemy of the Jewish people. And yet we know they're what we call the Palestinians today. They have no connection at all to the Philistines or Philistine. Yeah. It's made up thanks to people like Yasser Arafat and the rest of those guys. And of course, their River to the Sea chant, that means the elimination of the Jews. You go read their charter. Go read the Hamas charter. It is the elimination of the Jewish people. I mean, boom. So my flag back there is not because I agree with everything the Israeli government does. Far be it.
I mean, I don't agree with our government.
Exactly. That was going to be my next line. But I do stand with the Jewish people, and I am very concerned about the rise of global anti-Semitism. And particularly, I do know that they see many of us in America as the great Satan, and then Israel next. And if we don't understand who our enemies are, Hezbollah, Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood, and these are the things I've written about and spoken about and documentaries on for decades now. I mean, they are here. They are here, and I'm very concerned about our own October 7th style event. I'm very concerned about our own infrastructure. I'm very concerned about our infrastructure that, of course, for Memphis supports our bridges and our distribution and our FedEx and UPS and Amazon. I mean, our economy is so fragile and vulnerable in so many ways when it comes to our infrastructure, and our enemies know this. And I think the American people, sadly, that are now chanting things, or even if they're not chanting things, sitting on the sidelines saying, I don't know which side to go with. I don't really like this one side, but I don't know enough. Well, if we keep going this way, a lot of Americans are going to get an education that they didn't want, and I don't want to see us get, because we'll have our own October 7th.
Yeah, and even if you look, there are two ways that you could argue this. As a matter of fact, if the late Charlie Kirk, I've seen him in his debates with people, particularly on abortion. He would ask them, all right, how do you want to debate this? Do you want to debate it on a religious footing, or you want to debate this on a secular footing? He'd allow them to pick it. And I do this sometimes on the issue of Israel. We could do this on a religious basis that of ancient Israel and the current Israel and their connection, or we could do this on a secular level, and that is, they are a free people, they are a stable democracy, and as Americans, we ought to support stable democracies anywhere else around the world, regardless of where they are. And so I could debate that on a secular level, or on the religious ancient Israelites and their connection to the current Israel.
Okay, I know I keep saying last question, but this is it. How I don't get to interview a lot of politicians that can go this length of the field on so many issues. Do you read a lot? Did your mom and dad raise you a certain way? Because you're self-educated.
An autodidact, to use Charlie Kirk's phrase. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Autodidact is someone that's self-taught. I tell you, the way I particularly on biblical matters, I'll get focused on something, and that's all. I'll just try to find anything I can find on that topic until I've exhausted it or lose interest in it. I'll find another topic. And but yeah, I do read. And growing up, my family, we always surround the table and we talk politics and religion. My brother's actually got a master's degree in biblical studies. So we have a lot of conversations growing up and when we were younger, sitting around the table on this. So yeah, I enjoy it, and it's a passion.
Well, it shows. And it's nice to talk to an elected official that actually can talk the gamut: local, political, economic, international, geopolitics. Because I think you probably know there's a lot of guys that can't do what we just did.
Probably so.
Well, I interviewed
you talk to more of them.
I sure do. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You want to search him. It's Tennessee Senator Brent Taylor. Just search him. You'll pop right up. You have social media?
I do. I'm on Facebook and X.
Just type in Senator Brent Taylor to pop up.
Senator Brent Taylor. Yeah. Follow me. It's entertaining. We
Of course it is.
We comment on a lot of serious topics, but we do it in an entertaining way. And I'm an irreverent person by personality, and it comes across in my social media.
Well, we will be playing some of the Taylorisms.
Well, thank you. Please do.
We will.
And look, if you're going to be memorable, it helps to be a.
There's another one. All right, folks, we'll be right back after this break.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.